Join Mug Club for $99 a year, $69 a year for students, veterans, or active military. It's a stick-up, apparently, according to this song.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of things up, our next guest will never look me in the Skype. Right before the show, he's always looking down. So you know what, Ben, just for this, look at my sun poison. Look at this.
It's
look
a power
at it.
move.
Look at it at Ben Shapiro. That's the people who don't know Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. My wife applied my suntan lotion. Do you want me to take off my pants and show you my upper thighs, Ben?
No, you've done that before on my show. It was unpleasant.
Those were Ranger panties, and by the way, I owe you a pair. Have you ever gotten so sunburned that you wanted to throw up?
Not that I wanted to throw up. That's a new one.
But you get queasy. You get really queasy, and I don't know if it was heat stroke or sun poisoning, but my wife and I got into a hell of an argument because she said she didn't trust me with sun lotion. She applied it. Look at it, Ben!
Wow. Well done by your wife. I mean,
yeah,
frankly,
you know what?
I mean, as a man who's watched you be waterboarded and enjoyed it thoroughly, I can say, thanks to your wife. I appreciate it.
You know what? If it was her lying low and there was something that I did that aggravated her months back, and I would just have to give that one to her. I'm just going to have to give it to her. Let me ask, okay, so Ben, you have a new book out right now. I want to make sure I have this right. It's The Right Side of History, How Reason and Moral Purpose Made the Great West. It's going to be released, I guess it was released on Tuesday, March 19th. So before we get to that, I want to talk with you about this. Has been kind of making the rounds quite a bit. The Senate passed a bill that would allow states to punish businesses that take part in Israel boycotts, right? That's kind of how it's been sort of surmised. Rubio plays a big role in this. What's your position on this as someone, obviously, who both of us support Israel's right to exist, but also the ability for businesses to practice business freely?
100%. Well, here's what the bill actually does. So what the bill actually does, it doesn't punish businesses that boycott Israel. What it says is that the state will not contract with businesses that boycott Israel. So there are plenty of laws like this that are on the books with regard to, for example, racial discrimination. There are a lot of laws on the books like this with regard to anti-discrimination in LGBT communities. This is particularly true in places like California and New York, where if you are a government agency, you can't do business with a business that is refusing to do business with black people, for example.
Right.
So this is not the state going out of its way to, quote unquote, punish people who are anti-Israel. I mean, the state doesn't owe you a contract. It's the state deciding which businesses it will do business with. To be honest with you, I'm somewhat indifferent on the law. I don't think it's a violation of the First Amendment. At the same time, I generally am not a huge fan of the government, conditioning its contracts with people on the political views of those businesses. I just think that's generally a mistake. So I'm not a huge detractor of this particular bill. I'm also not a huge advocate for this particular bill, but I think it's important to be accurate about what the bill does, and it's not forcing businesses not to be pro-BDS. If they want to be pro-BDS, they can be pro-BDS. They just can't do business with the state.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important to note. And there have been a lot of people who've taken this out of context and make it seem as though basically they're banning businesses who boycott Israel. We're sort of getting into the business of kind of like no-bid contracts. When you're talking about companies having contracts with the government, this changes the working relationship quite a bit. Speaking of Israel, this week, not a lot of coverage because it happened, I believe, right before New Zealand. I don't know the final tally. Several rockets launched from Gaza into Tel Aviv. You can see the footage of it being stopped by the Iron Dome. How do you see this moving forward from here, and how would you like to see this moving forward? Again, there wasn't a lot of coverage of the rockets.
Yeah, I mean, there was no coverage of the rockets. There was no coverage of another terror attack in which a father of 12 was murdered in Israel, 47-year-old rabbi was father of 12. These sorts of attacks are just completely ignored by the world media because when it's Israel involved, then we pretend that Israel is not a member of the Western coalition, and terror attacks against Israelis are simply chalked up to anti-Israel sentiment as opposed to anti-Jewish sentiment. Firing rockets into the middle of Tel Aviv, which is a civilian area that is not in, quote, the West Bank, or in the Gaza Strip, obviously, is a pretty good indicator that maybe Hamas just wants to destroy Israel. Other good indicators include their charter, in which they say they want to destroy Israel, and all of their propaganda, in which they say they want to destroy Israel, and the fact that they've built terror tunnels instead of providing food for their people. The other uncovered story from the Gaza Strip is that Hamas is shooting its own citizens in the Gaza Strip. 7 people were shot this week by Hamas in the streets, and they're arresting all the dissidents. The media don't ever find any of this stuff newsworthy. They find it newsworthy when Israel fights back, when Israel goes in and targets Hamas, when Israel hits a school that Hamas is using as a military base, for example, then that becomes a world story. But firing rockets into the middle of civilian areas in the biggest city in Israel, no, it's not a big deal at all.
Let me ask you this. Oh, thanks for shutting your phone off, Mr. Shapiro.
You know what, Crowder?
I know you're so busy. You're far too busy for
Skype.
us Gentiles and our non-hatted skulls. Here's the thing. What you just mentioned, I agree with you. But if you notice, there's a schism where a lot of people think, oh man, Israel just gets all the media coverage because the media is run by Jewish executives, and so all of these people support Israel. Everyone in the entertainment industry, and then people who are pro-Israel say, well, no, listen, they're always sympathizing with Palestine. They're not covering the rockets being launched. It seems as though both sides have really dug in their heels and see the media as either being overtly pro-Jewish, pro-Israel, or completely anti-Israel. Why do you think that is?
Because you have to be out of your mind to believe that the media are overtly pro-Israel. I mean, CNN, I went on CNN in 2014, and I said that they were essentially an outlet for Hamas. I mean, the CNN's coverage of these sorts of conflicts is inevitably geared toward Israel as the aggressor, because the left-wing narrative is that Israel is the bad guy in this particular conflict, for the same reason that rich people are generally seen as the bad guys in various conflicts around the world. The
and
left,
all Disney films.
The left largely says whenever there's someone successful and someone unsuccessful, it must be because the successful person somehow hurt the unsuccessful person. And they see that same conflict playing out in Israel. Israel is successful. It is a very economically prosperous society, has a lot of technology, has a very powerful military. And so the narrative is that must be because they have disadvantaged the Palestinians. Israel has been trying desperately to hand over control of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians for legitimately decades at this point. They did hand over full control of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians in 2005.
And the rockets.
The Palestinians promptly burned down all the greenhouses and elected Hamas, so it's worked out fantastically well.
And the charter is key. You know, if you sign up for iTunes and if you read the agreement, it says, by the way, we're also going to kill your wife and family. You'd be like, oh, hold on a second. This seems odd to put in the agreement. Seems like you wanted me to gloss over that one, Tim Apple. Let me ask you. I said Tim Cook. No, you didn't. There's a video. I said Tim Cook. Why lie about this? It's just a flub that doesn't matter. Final question, though. This is one thing, as someone who, has vehemently defended Israel's right to exist. Do you see it as a problem, or a lot of detractors point to an inconsistency in them being sort of allies with Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest funders of terrorism? I understand the geopolitics as it relates to Iran, as it relates to the conflicts over there, and they need some kind of protection. That being said, the Saudi Arabia relationships, both with the United States government and Israeli government, doesn't sit well with a lot of people. What about yourself?
Well, I mean, in an ideal world, obviously, you wouldn't be allied with any bad governments. The reality of the world, as President Trump has correctly stated, is that very often you're allied with bad governments against worse governments. And that's certainly the case with both the United States' relationship with Saudi Arabia and now the Israeli relationship with Saudi Arabia. You don't, unfortunately, get to pick all of your allies when it comes to world politics. Were that the case, then it would have been very difficult to side with Stalin to defeat Hitler during World War II. You're constantly having to make choices about which people are worthy of siding with in order to stop worse people. Right. And I see that less as inconsistency and more as just the realities on the ground. That's just a truism of politics generally.
But we can agree, Saudi Arabian government, kind of dicks.
Awful.
Okay,
awful,
good.
Evil government.
All right,
yeah,
good.
Absolutely.
So there we go. This is why I appreciate you coming on, because if I say this, people are like, you're paid by big Shapiro money. I'm like, no, I'm not Jewish. I just think that this stuff is pretty reasonable. They have a right to exist, and they have rockets going into their main city there from the Strip. By the way, take the Strip, turn it into a strip mall for all I care. So your book, Right Side of History, wouldn't that be, if Donald Trump could go in and call it Trump Gaza Strip Ball, it would sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, off the
Everyone
shelves.
would want to go there. No one even wants to go to strip malls, but I'd go to that strip mall, especially if it sat under the Iron Dome. So Right Side of History, the book, was released this week. Give us a briefer on this and why you think it's important for everyone to read your book. You've talked about this, and obviously that's a good place. Everyone needs to read my book, but you've talked about specifically whether they agree with you politically, ideologically, or not. Why is this book different in that sense?
Well, what the book basically is about is why we're so angry at each other. We live in the freest, most prosperous civilization in the history of the world, and it is not close. And yet we are supremely pissed at each other. And that is because, in my view, we have forgotten the sort of ties that bind us together. And those are ties that have a long history, a 3,000-year history, going back through Sinai, through the Sermon on the Mount, and including Greek thought as well. This kind of merger of Judeo-Christian values and Greek reason, that interplay created the West and created all the values that we like today. So if you like science, if you like technology, if you're a big fan of free speech, if you're a big fan of living in a democracy, all of these concepts come out of the West. They don't come out of anywhere else. And so we have to try and re-examine why it is that these concepts came out of the West and whether those concepts are rooted in something deeper and more valuable, and that we can't just discard. I think that we sort of want to take the gains of Western civilization while ignoring the roots of Western civilization, or even fighting against those roots. And I don't think you can do that. I don't think that you can fight Judeo-Christian values and at the same time talk about how you want to maintain all of the prosperity, equality, and freedom of Western civilization. You can't remove the foundation from a building and expect the facade to stand.
No, I think that's a good point. But you just talked about how kind of we're supremely pissed off at each other and examining why. Well, let me just say this. I always talk about this. I don't believe in finding common ground if there's the truth and the truth does not find itself in the common ground. People just heard you say that about Western civilization. People will read this book and they will be supremely pissed off. So are you, by default, adding to the polarization in simply pointing out the truth? That's my issue, where you have a lot of people who shall remain nameless who go out and go, we're just going to build bridges. Well, okay, good example. I can't build a bridge with Hamas if in their charter is to blow me up.
Right. I mean, the book is also a clarification, obviously. And there is a view of Western civilization that Western civilization is inherently bad. I hope that the book convinces people that Western civilization is not inherently bad. But if it's your view that Western civilization is all about racism, sexism, bigotry, homophobia, and that all of those things can only be torn out by removing Western civilization at its root and replacing it with some sort of new socialist utopia or replacing it with tribal intersectionality, if that's your view, well, then let's clarify that view and let's have that argument, because I think your argument sucks. But the idea here is that America was based in certain values that are pretty much embedded in our founding documents. We haven't always lived up to those values, obviously. Sometimes we don't live up to those values today. But to suggest that America's values are about the evils rather than about the goods is to ignore the fact that the goods that have been produced by the West are uniquely Western, and the evils that the West has produced are not unique to the West at all. They've been universal in virtually every human society.
That's a very good point. Yeah, the virtues here are pretty unique to the West. And that's one thing also when you deal with moral relativists or atheists, hardcore atheists, who say, well, if I need a God to tell me not to kill somebody, then I'm just crazy, and that God is great. Well, okay, hold on a second. What about a God to tell you to be merciful? Not all societies valued mercy, particularly not until modern Christendom. What about a God that tells you to not cheat on your wife? What about a God who tells you to love your wife and speak to her tenderly? These are not universal values. There are certain values that we see in the West, particularly in the United States, that have not been embedded in other societies that do come directly from Judeo-Christian principles. And it's always interesting to me that the hardcore atheists take the extreme arguments like, well, every society knows that killing is wrong. Even if we take that example, not all societies agree with that. You look at Native Americans. They didn't have a concept of personal property, and so you'd come home, your shit was gone because it wasn't technically your shit. You know? These are things that people don't think about. I'm sure you do.
Well, the fact is that even if you take the example of murder, it is true that virtually every society has a taboo against murder. That does not mean that the law extends to people beyond your tribe. So it's very easy to say, yeah, you're not allowed to murder people who are inside our tribe, like inside this camp right here. But over there, those guys, those aren't humans over there. And also, if you happen to be a very powerful person, you do have the right to kill somebody who's below you on the social scale. You do have the right to kill people who are more weak and more vulnerable. To suggest that a universal taboo against murder is not embedded in the Bible in a different way than it's embedded in pagan civilizations is to ignore the fact that child sacrifice was a regular thing in a lot of pagan civilizations.
Right. Or Coney. I saw that movie, Taking the Child Soldiers. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember Coney?
No.
You don't remember Coney? That was like the biggest documentary. You remember that? The big documentary, Coney, was this war. You remember that, Quarterback Garrett?
That
All
was
the
a
children
campaign.
warlords. It was a campaign, and then the guy who made it went on like a Martin Lawrence-style bender in L.A. He was snorting coke, and he was naked, I think, on Sunset Boulevard. And
This went in a weird direction.
I did, yeah, I did. Well, listen, you saw the ride, you bought a ticket anyway. All right, final question here, Ben, because this has been an entirely reasonable interview, and I want some people pissed off with both you and myself, because it's always what happens after these. You're giving a report card on Donald Trump here, especially as we're looking at the DNC candidates coming up. What would you give him overall? What would you give him overall? And do you think he wins in 2020?
I think that I hate to hedge bets, but I didn't hedge my bets in the last election cycle, and then I lost lots of money.
You did.
So when it comes to how President Trump is going to do in this election cycle, it's almost entirely dependent on two factors. Can he shut his face? Will sounds come out? Can he stop his tweeting thumbs? And also, will the Democrats nominate somebody completely loony? Or will they try to go toward the more electable direction and nominate someone who's half loony like Joe Biden?
Right.
Or are they going to go completely bat bleep and nominate Bernie Sanders? Is that the way they go? So if President Trump could shut up and allow the focus to be on Democrats, I would say that he has a better than 50% chance of being reelected.
Yeah.
If, however, he continues to do what he's doing and drive away suburban women, he lost the popular vote by 2.5 million votes last time. He ran the narrowest gauntlet in American history. He won the 3 key states by a combined 80,000 votes. He won fewer absolute votes in Wisconsin than Mitt Romney won in Wisconsin. The real story of 2016 is nobody showed up to vote for Hillary Clinton, number one, because they didn't like her, and number two, because they figured she was going to win. That same phenomenon is not going to take place again.
Right.
Democrats are going to show up. They're going to show up in big numbers. So President Trump's best bet here, he's not going to convince people that he's a wonderful human being because people think what they think about him already.
Right.
The best bet here is just shut up.
Well, not just shut up.
Democrats keep talking.
The reason for him shutting up is more helpful to him is because the economy is doing so well. The New York Times are even trying to find excuses as to why it works and attribute it to Obama. If he can just be silent and direct people toward his record on the economy, and then say, "Hey, by the way, now Kamala Harris," and she's saying whatever Kamala Harris says, or "By the way, here's Elizabeth Warren's Instagram. Have fun." That's all he needs to do, and he wins. I agree. If he could get out, it's like a race to the bottom. If he can get out of his own way, this should be very winnable because of the economy. If they run Joe Biden, I don't think it matters as long as Donald Trump is just a little bit more disciplined. But I don't think they're going to run Joe Biden. I think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I think it's going to be the double, triple minority factor, and maybe they'll put Beto on there because, I don't know, he's a wiener.
Because they need a weirdo who tries to feed his wife poo as avocado or something.
What?
You saw that story?
No.
Did you see the story? It was a Washington Post story about him and his wife. And normally I don't care about the spouses of candidates, but the story is mostly about how he's a weirdo, how he likes to prank his wife. And apparently he took like one of his kids' diaper turds and put it in a bowl and told her that it was avocado. And also, in the last few months, apparently he went to New Mexico and he ate dirt. I'm not kidding you. It says this in the story. Like, to recover from his loss to Ted Cruz, he ate it was supposed to restore sustenance to him. He went and he ate dirt.
No, that was just a spin on the story. He lost a bet, and Ted Cruz was making him eat the dirt, going, now, eat the dirt. That's right, E. coli. I don't know why it sounds like George Bush Sr. The poo thing, though, is you can die.
That's disturbing.
You could have killed it. It's like cinnamon challenge with death.
Also, I mean, if you want to piss off the millennials, substituting poo for avocado, that'll piss off all the millennials.
What's he going to do next time? He's going to take a rabbit poop to substitute for single origin coffee and just put it in a coffee house, do a pour over. Like, whoa, you were supposed to be on our side, Beto. All right, the book is, I want to make sure I have the title, The Right Side of History, How Reason and Moral Purpose Made the Great West. The show is Ben Shapiro Show on Daily Wire. Of course, he's the editor-in-chief of Daily Wire. All right, Mr. Ben Daily Wire, appreciate it. You must go.
Catch you later.
See you. We'll be back, wrapping it up.